The steel drum or steel pan, the only instrument to be invented in the 20th century, was crafted as a result of the creativity and resilience of the people of the Caribbean. The instrument is considered to be iconic to the music of the region. It is an amazing instrument that offers music from classics to calypso and is played by people all over the world, young and old, of all nationalities. In 1940, Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister of England, signed an agreement with Franklin Roosevelt, the President of the United States, for the exchange of 50 warships for a 90-year lease of some land in Trinidad, where the Americans built a naval and air force base. Little did Churchill and Roosevelt know that that deal they made in 1940 would result in the birth of the steel pan. When the Americans came to Trinidad, they transported oil in 55-gallon steel drums. When they no longer needed the drums, they threw them in the garbage. Some young men took the discarded oil drums and made musical instruments out of them. They burned the drums for a few hours on a big wood fire to soften the steel. Then they hammered the flat surface of the drums to make concave surfaces. This way, they were able to carve out more notes than on the flat surface. They then cut the drums to a certain length depending on the type of pans, tempering the instruments over fire to strengthen the material, then allowing them to cool, the stages of tuning, and finally chroming, powder coating, or painting. Ellie Manette of Trinidad created the steel pan. The first person to play a tune on the steel pan was Winston Spree Simon. In addition to the primary notes, steel pans are often tuned to produce overtones and harmonics. There were several trained tuners in Grenada, including Kenneth Tillotty Hood, Wilfred Harris, and Mr. Wilton Cummings from Happy Hill. A steel band factory was set up in True Blue for the making of steel pans by the government. The history of pan in Grenada is similar to that of Trinidad and Tobago. The pan movement in both countries carried a stigma that related to bajans and no goods, simply because it was considered to be created primarily by unemployed young men at the time who were labeled by society. Steel band was considered as a bajan thing, and as a result, women, children, and middle upper class individuals would never play pan back in those days. There was only one woman from Happy Hill that played at the time. According to reports, police officers would chase away pan men on occasions. People considered to be no good if they participated in playing pan. The names given to the bands offered no help because they were considered to reflect the feelings of society at the time. Names such as Hell Angels, Bandits, Renegades, Hellcats, and Wayside Symphony helped to compound the negative labeling of the movement. Over the years, the names have changed to reflect a more positive tone, such as Panasonic, Fascinators, City Symphony, New Tones, New Dimension, Comancheros, Angel Harps, etc. Steel band clashes were a significant part of the pan movement, and there were several concerts held in the botanical gardens. Concerts were held in various communities throughout Grenada, and the public works trucks would transport the bands to their destinations. The late Peck Edwards spoke about playing pan on Esso oil tins, with each pan carrying a note as an early creation, with notes following the basic musical scale. This, of course, evolved into larger oil drums with the basic notes on one pan. The pan moved from the basic 8 notes and evolved into the chromatic scale featuring sharps and flats. The oldest steel band in Grenada is Angel Harps. Harps was founded in 1965. A combination of three bands from the Carenage came together as one Teensville, Harps, Tones, and Troubadours Steel Orchestra. There were other bands before Harps, but they did not exist until today, including Gaspo and Maestro, a steel and combo band. Comancheros Steel Orchestra was formed in St. Paul's in 1967 and was formerly called Tiny Tots Combo. St. John has had several steel bands since around the 1950s. There were the Glen Boys and Melody Makers in Gaul. The Dixie Cola Steel Band was formed in 1967. In mid-1968, after a split, the Thunderbird Steel Band was formed in the village of Florida, and the remainder of the bands formed the Sunset Steel Band that was short-lived. The bands were then given to the guys in Florida and led to the expansion and formation of the Florida All-Stars as we know it. In the 1960s in Grand Roy, there were two steel bands, Blue Busters and Western Fascinators. The Grand Roy Pan Angels was formed in December 2005. In the early 1970s, Silver Tone Steel Band was formed. Metronomics Steel Orchestra was established a couple years later using some of the pans from Silver Tones. Panacea from Guelph St. John was formed in 2009. There were several other bands across the nation over the last 4 decades, including Melodic Symphony from Springs, Pan Lovers from Grand Anse Valley, Volume 2 from St. Andrew, which was the band before the formation of Rainbow City All-Stars. And in St. Patrick, there was Melody Warriors and the River Sally Steel Orchestra. St. Mark had Syncopators. In St. David, there was the Corinthians. And in Carriacou, the Carriacou and Petit Martinique Steel Orchestra. Angel Harps was the first Grenadian steel band to produce a record album, Right Out of Darkness, recorded in Barbados. Since its formation in 1967, Comancheros has done 2 official recordings on vinyl, Play Mass, recorded in Barbados in 1972, and Variation in Tempo, recorded in Trinidad in 1976. In the 1970s, girls from the St. Joseph's Convent were the first to take up residence in the Angel Harps Panyard. The last Steel Band Festival was held in Grenada in 1976. The first Panorama was held in 1969 and won by Panasonic, led by the late Trevor Emmanuel. Comancheros has taken steel band music to 4 continents across the globe in the 70s and 80s while traveling aboard several cruise ships. The Harps also has the distinction of being the first Grenadian steel band to appear in the National Panorama Finals with the entire band under canopies and on wheels. Over the years, most orchestras played their very own compositions for Panorama. However, in recent times, this has evolved with a heavy emphasis on tunes from local artists. Tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the Grenada Steel Band Association, in collaboration with Spice Mass, proudly present to you 8 steel orchestras playing local renditions for the 2024 Panorama Championship.